Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Will George Pickens play his last game with Steelers versus Ravens? The bulk of the talk about the Steelers in the media, whether about George Pickens or not, shares one thing in common. Basically, everybody thinks they're going to lose, so they're looking ahead to the offseason. And one of the biggest questions they'll face this offseason concerns their supposed number one receiver. That would be George Pickens, of course, who is wrapping up his third season with the Steelers. As a former second-round pick, that means he is now due for a contract extension, at least historically. But some wonder if the Steelers even want him back, and at what price. Likewise, some wonder if Pickens still wants to be here, or is becoming a hostage. On Saturday, the Steelers play the Ravens in Baltimore in the wild card round. Is this Pickens' final game here? Obviously, they have him under contract through 2025, but they also have a history of trading wide receivers they don't plan to sign long-term. They did it with Santonio Holmes, then with Martavis Bryant, and more recently Chase Claypool. Though they did sign Deontay Johnson to a small extension, they also traded him, too, when it was time. Mike Tomlin's philosophy is one of tolerance for those who are useful. Once you become more trouble than you're worth, there is a problem. And we know George Pickens has caused a number of headaches, leading to speculation about the Steelers trading him. So the question is, how much is he worth? In the Steelers' last game, he dropped half of his targets, catching only 1 for 0 yards. While he is impressive, dynamic, and talented, he still has all of 12 touchdowns. For a 3-year starter who believes he is the best wide receiver in the world, that is embarrassing. Only 2 wide receivers in 2024 caught as many passes as Pickens, while catching fewer touchdowns. He had just 3 for the Steelers this year, the lowest in his career, and that can't be explained away just by the games he missed. He still saw over 100 targets, but he didn't make enough plays. Ravens OC, unfair to pin all teams' struggles against Steelers on Lamar Jackson. Baltimore Ravens QB Lamar Jackson beat the Pittsburgh Steelers for just the second time earlier this year. In order to advance to the next round of the playoffs, he will have to do it again. While the Steelers have had considerable success against the Ravens in recent years, OC Todd Monken isn't faulting Jackson. I think it's unfair to pin it all on Lamar Jackson, he said of their struggles against the Steelers, via the Ravens website. I've been here 2 years, and he's played in 3 of them, and there are things I didn't do well in the first game a year ago, and we had a bunch of drops. The first game this year, we had turnovers and a bunch of penalties. That's a team issue, Monken pointed out, though Jackson also didn't have his best game against the Steelers. That's not a Lamar issue, that's a team issue, and he played really well this last time we played them, and we played well as a team, and that's what it's going to take Saturday. For his career against the Steelers, Lamar Jackson is 109 for 188 for 1,284 yards with 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He has taken 23 sacks as a 10.9% rate with 8 fumbles and a 40.3% pass success rate. Suffice it to say that these are well below his career numbers. So when Monken talks about the Ravens' struggles against the Steelers, Lamar Jackson is definitely a part of it. He is right, however, to point out that he hasn't been the only issue, especially lately. While the Ravens lost 8 of 9 games to the Steelers, several of those games came without Jackson, for starters. In some games Jackson has played, the Ravens repeatedly hurt themselves, either with drops or other unforced errors. They played out of character, though one wonders if there was a psychological factor. It's possible the Steelers were simply in the Ravens' heads, and there is evidence to suggest that. When you keep losing to the same team yet seemingly beat everybody else, it has to stick out. And Lamar Jackson hasn't always played the Steelers under the best circumstances. That includes this Saturday, as the Ravens may be without Zay Flowers, their top wide receiver. Still, they are overwhelming favorites, and after Lamar Jackson beat them late in the year, I think the Steelers' recent history of success against them has been forgotten. Last time around, the Ravens didn't even need Jackson to do too much against the Steelers. While he threw 3 touchdown passes, he only attempted 23, completing 15 for 207 yards. The Steelers did pick him off once. But in contrast to prior matchups, his teammates bailed him out. Marlon Humphrey's pick six sealed the win, and perhaps dispelled the voodoo haunting them in recent years. Steelers linked to number 1 ranked free agent as Russell Wilson replacement. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a franchise-defining decision to make as soon as their playoff run comes to an end. Quarterback Justin Fields is most likely on his way out after the team benched him for Russell Wilson, despite a 4-2 start to the season. That move initially looked brilliant, and Wilson appeared a potentially viable long-term solution, as he led Pittsburgh to 6 victories in the next 7 games. But the Steelers have lost 4 in a row since, 3 of which haven't been particularly close. They backed into the playoffs as the number 6 seed and must go on the road to play the Buffalo Bills over Super Wildcard Weekend. Wilson turns 37 next season and wasn't dynamic over the losing streak, tallying 4 TDs compared to 2 INTs. Pittsburgh has no path to drafting one of the top QBs in April, as Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are likely to be the first 2 players off the board. That means if the Steelers want a legitimate QB ready to go from week 1, and that man isn't Wilson, they are going to have to find his replacement in free agency. Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report on Wednesday, January 8, named Pittsburgh as a top 2 suitor for Minnesota Vikings breakthrough starter Sam Darnold, who Knox dubbed the top free agent this offseason. Don't be shocked if the Steelers make a play for Darnold now that their quarterback outlook appears much less sunny than it did a few months ago, Knox wrote on Wednesday, January 8. Darnold would be a far better long-term investment than Wilson for Pittsburgh. Some of Darnold's success is due to Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell maximizing his skill set and covering up his flaws through overall scheme and specific play design, while having wide receivers Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison as his top 2 options hasn't hurt either. Pittsburgh doesn't have that same offensive infrastructure, which could be cause for pause where Darnold is concerned. However, the Steelers could also try to put together a competitive trade offer for Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who many believe would have been the top player selected in the 2025 draft had he remained in college 1 year longer. If the Vikings decide to extend Darnold at a competitive price, he won't hit free agency in March regardless. But in that scenario, there is a strong chance McCarthy will find his way to the trade block. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of SA and Darnold? Leave your opinion in the comments.